Taggy here for our weekly whiteboard. I believe number 8 is correct. I hope that is right. First off, is my mic working? Is it working? I don't know. Let me know if my mic is working. Can you hear me? Okay, so anyone can let me know and go from there. But I'll just kind of be talking along. Okay, cool. So people can hear me. All right, great. So today's question is an awesome question. I ask myself and other people ask me, and you know, it's basically a good problem to have. The question is, so I'm moving, right? Someone's like, hey, I'm going to be moving. I'm going to buy another house, upsizing, downsizing, whatever it is. It's in the same market I live in. And I'm just wondering, should I completely sell the current house I'm living in, take that equity and put it into that other house? Or should I? Scott Everhart, our man, he is on. Scott, man, thank you so much. We love having you here. All your comments, man. Don't take it easy on me, but I know you're always good. It's nice to have you here, man. So the question is, what should I do? Should I keep my house that I'm living in as a rental, or should I just sell it and not have it as a rental and just put money into the other house? So a lot of great things to consider. So first off, depends. If you're in a good rental market, it might be a good consideration to keep the current house you're living in and then buy another house and keep that one as a rental, because all those benefits of owning real estate and everything like that. So why don't we kind of put it in kind of some scenario terms. So the current house you live in, you know, so your current home, right, your old one that you're planning on moving out of, let's say the value is $350K. And then let's say you have a mortgage of $250K on it. So you have equity, 100K, right, in equity on this house. So scenario number 1, you could just, you know, sell the current house and then buy your other house. We don't need to go into theories of what this new house you're buying, right? Who cares about that? But let's just say though, you need probably 50 grand to buy this other house. That's pretty much the only thing you need to consider here. Who cares whatever house you're buying? It's the same scenario. So if you sell it, obviously you'll get most of this equity. There'll be some fees and stuff, but you'll probably get like 90 grand of this, which will give you more than enough to buy the house. Then you'd have some more equity. So you probably have 40K for investment. $50K to buy it. But this home, and you get rid of, you know, you paid some money to get this mortgage and all of that, and you know about the home and all of that. So you could just sell the home, use the equity, buy your house. Okay, now, I love this. What some other people are talking to me about, and myself personally as well, I'm actually doing this now. I chose to actually keep my house, keep my old house, and, you know, and have it as a rental, and then also buy a new one. Now, how did I pull this off? Because I do, you know, let's say you don't have 50 grand lying around. You could actually get a HELOC on this house, okay? So you could, step 1, I guess step A, you get a HELOC, right? Because some people, all they think is, oh, the only way to pull equity in my house is to sell it. But what you can do is get a HELOC. Hey, get the HELOC. Scott, I knew it, man. I know, you think like me. Okay, so 350. If it appraises for 350, an appraiser's going to go, the HELOC lender will probably give you like a 90% loan to value. I see them anywhere from 90 to 95. Let's just call it 90. So they're going to give you a HELOC at 315K, right? So, you know, above that 250K more. So minus 250. So you have basically 65K on that HELOC to play around with, which is more than enough to buy that house, because all you need is whatever, 50 grand down, whatever. You get like a 5% down or a 10% down, 20% down house. So now, you know, the HELOC probably is around 4 or 5% interest. Okay, so that's the one thing on here where this money has no interest and you have some money left around. So here's what I like though about this. Let's say it depends on what this house can rent for, right? If this rent is pretty good on this house, like let's call it $2,000 a month, then this is now a pretty sweet rental, because I would assume in this type of price range, this house is going to appreciate pretty dang quickly, and you're probably going to get a pretty dang good renter in there, right? So let me just pull up real quick mortgage calculator on my computer here. So let's say, you know, you just 250,000 at a let's call it a 3% interest rate. I mean, your principal and interest payments on this house, now that it's a rental, is $1,000 a month about. Then let's say, you know, you have taxes, insurance, all these, you know, property management fees if you're going to manage it or not. You got expenses of owning the real estate. You got maintenance, repairs, things like that. But let's just call it $800 a month for all of that. And that's actually, I'd say, pretty high. But let's just say all that goes to there. So you're going to have what's called cash flow a month, 2,000 minus 1,800. You're going to have $200 a month of cash flow on this rental. So heck, you're cash flowing. So I would do all this math, use your estimations for your tax. This is taxes, insurance, just expenses, right? You can check out ours and kind of adjust yours. I'm just kind of using a cowboy estimation here of your expenses. So you're going to get $200 a month times 12. So that's $2,400 a year. Okay. Now, kind of interesting, to get a return on investment, you're going to actually have to go back and think like how much money I put down for this house, but actually knowing that you got this HELOC, pulled out $65K, I bet you probably only put like 40 grand down. So now actually you theoretically have an infinite return on investment from this because you've pulled more than your 40K down in investment, just theoretically speaking there. So I can't really put an ROI on this, but you're going to get $2,400 a year. Plus you're going to be paying down this mortgage. Okay, so now you're going to be paying down the mortgage still, right? All those great benefits. You now can write off this house. This house can be depreciated over time. All these repairs, a lot of these expenses and repairs can be written off. The interest payments can now be written off because when you're a homeowner, you can't, well, you still can write those off. Anyways, consult your accountant. Anyways, some awesome things of owning this. And here's the big thing. You now have this HELOC though that obviously you needed to like use for the down payment. The HELOC, let's say you use the 50 grand of the HELOC and it's at a 4% interest rate and it's like interest only payments. So if you used 50K of this HELOC at 4%, your interest but you know, if you have a good job and have some personal cash flow, you know, I personally, this is what I'm doing. I've kept this around because I just know, I just saw my house appreciated like 10% last year. So I'm like, well, why don't I hold on to this sucker, use a HELOC, pull some equity, own my other house, you know, and then keep this one as a rental because it did kind of work. Mine actually is pretty similar to this, just adjusted down a little, and it works out this whole scenario. So then you can keep it as a rental, okay? And then also you have another 15K to kind of work with here. I mean, just work out your scenario, how much you need down and all that. Now this does adjust your debt to income ratio because now your lender's factoring all this in, the extra debt on your HELOC, that's on your debt to income. So just make sure you can qualify on that. But if you have a good job and have more than enough, you know, let's see, 2,000 divided by 12. If you have an extra $166 of cash flow, you know, on your debt to income ratio, you'll be good to qualify for all this. So cool, Scott. Well, 3.19 HELOC. Yeah, I'm being pretty conservative here. 3.19, dude, that's a great HELOC, man. Cheapest secondary money around. I agree. So HELOCs. Okay, great. Grant, yeah, great question. Is my HELOC fixed or variable? So it depends on. Just go to 3 banks. You know, a credit union are pretty good ones to get HELOCs from, because credit unions are a little bit cheaper and they're credit unions. That's the name of the game for them. They love doing HELOCs. So go to them, but it's probably going to be fixed for probably what a HELOC typically is. It's like fixed for 5 years. Okay. And it might be principal and interest payments, or it might be interest only payments, hopefully interest only, which it typically is. It kind of works just like a credit card. So you're basically getting a 3%, 4% credit card. And you're going to be able to draw up to $65,000 as much as you want. Now you can draw it or not. So it's not like a mortgage where you have to take all that out. You know, you can just draw up to whatever you need, the 15K, and still have that buffer, right? You have 15K as a reserve fund or to play around with whatever else you want to invest in. For those 5 years you're working it, you know, you put the 50 in and you pay that. You could actually start using this extra cash flow to pay down this 50K over time. Some really cool things. And maybe if you make a little bit extra money each month, that 100, you know, you make an extra $500 or $200 each month, throw it onto the HELOC and just start paying it down, and the interest is getting paid off. Really awesome. Like, I also highly suggest everyone gets a HELOC, and on all your rental properties, you know, let's say you're cash flowing a little bit, put all that cash flow and reserves into your HELOC and keep that as your reserve fund instead of in your bank account making you 1% interest or 0.2% interest. Throw it into your HELOC and attacking down that 3 to 5% debt. And then when you need it, you know, making sure you have plenty of time still left on your HELOC. When you need it, then there's a big repair. Boom, you go and pay that big expense or that turnover bill. So great. I think it's a great financial strategy to get a HELOC. I mean, all it costs to get here's what's awesome about a HELOC too. All it costs is an appraisal. An appraisal and maybe some really cheap lender fees. I'm talking like a quarter to an eighth the amount of getting a fixed 30-year mortgage. It's really cheap stuff. Hence why it's not marketed a lot, because lenders don't make a lot of money from HELOCs. So it's not out there marketed. What you hear in marketing is Rocket Mortgage and all those big guys, 30-year fixed, 30-year fixed, because they make all the big fees on the 30-year fixed. The lenders do not make big fees on the HELOC. Huh, interesting, huh? Hence why there's always this refinance bubble every 4 years, which is what Aaron Chapman talked about last week with me. Yeah, interest only for Scott. Dude, I know, right, man? Variable, and it's indexed at prime. So yeah, this could, you know, they just based on what prime is. So actually right now is a good time. Sometimes they'll fix it in at what prime is today, and the prime is really low today because interest rates have dropped a lot since COVID. So it's actually a good advantageous time to either refinance or get a HELOC, stuff like that, if you can. And you basically just got to get an appraisal. Boom, appraisal costs $500-600 depending on your area. All right, and just so you know more on the HELOC, after those 5 years, typically it's going to then, whatever amount's left, so let's say at 5 years you have 40K still left on your HELOC, it then turns into like a 15 to 20 year amortized loan, which we're familiar with that, if you haven't paid it off by the end of that 5 years. So you still have time to pay it off after that too. So some pretty cool little options there. And yeah, I suggest keeping this. Now playing the, you know, the compare here, right? So it just depends on the opportunities that you think you'll have. If you think you'll actually get a better opportunity than this type of house here as a rental property or a better investment, which, I mean, it's kind of hard to beat this, at least in this scenario. Now, if this was like some $600,000 house that only rented for $2,500 or $3,000, and you'd be like negative cash flow, right? That scenario changes for you and yourself. Depending on the type of house and the area you're living in, you need to do the numbers to see, well, what will I cash flow? And then also considering also the HELOC interest cost, okay? But it might be advantageous, you know, for this 40K, you could go buy 2 turnkey properties from us with that 40K, right? So looking at 2 turnkey properties, 20 grand each, right? 20% down or so. And, you know, those will cash flow couple hundred a month as well, is what our numbers show. So you'd probably just, you know, compare these numbers to what this one is, you know. But I also would think, you know, thinking about your area, it just depends on what you want to play. If you want to play the appreciation game in kind of your nice Class A homeowner neighborhood wherever you live, or if this would probably be like a Class B in Memphis, so, you know, won't appreciate quite as much, but you'll get some good cash flow. You know, pros and cons to all of this, and you get 2 houses. This one you end up with having 3 houses if you invested it. This one you're ending up with 2, but they're more like, you know, this one's a higher quality house. I actually like, if I'm trying to invest, you know, trying to balance it out, I want some C-class properties, I want some B-class properties, and I do want some A-class properties. So I've done exactly this. I've kept my current home. I bought a new home, and I'm just using the HELOC to strip the equity from this and using that for the down payment and repairs on this new home. And it's in a Class A, where I do have other properties that are in Class C's here in Memphis. So great things to think about. Difficult, yes. Oh, yes, Scott. Great point, Scott Everhart. Man, I appreciate it. If you're going to do this strategy, the number 2, and get a HELOC, get the HELOC before you buy the house, okay? Reason being, HELOCs are mainly only for home equity, so it's really for your personal home. So get the HELOC first when you're living in the property, not after you buy this other house, then keep it as around and try to get a HELOC on there. I really don't see a lot of lenders that do HELOCs on rental properties. They're out there, but they're just hard to find. So, and a lot better interest rates, as we know, right? You get homeowner interest rates are 1 or 2% less than what investor interest rates are for fixed 30 years, and proportional to the HELOC. That's a very great point. Yes, it is difficult to get a HELOC on an investment property. That was a great question, Scott. All right, Grant, back at you. How much protective mortgage insurance on mortgage if 80K is okay? So great question. Okay, Scott, I like sorry, Grant there. Grant, great question. So it's called protective mortgage insurance, whatever, PMI. Okay, so if the reason lenders kind of created this whole thing, I don't know when, definitely after the crash or before, I don't know if it was before, but it's basically like the lender's like, well, if you have a little bit of equity on your home, meaning you're only putting 5% down or 10% down, the lender's like, well, that's not a lot of equity in the house. So that mortgage is now at a higher risk, because the less down, I mean, think about it. The less money I put into a house, the more willing I'm probably to walk away from it and let it go to foreclosure if something happens. But if I put like 50% down on a house, I got a lot of cash, of my own personal cash, trapped in that deal. Where if I only have 5, I only have 5%. So I'm probably gonna stick in there harder and tougher with 50% of my equity in the house, 50% down, than 5. Also, my mortgage amount is less from 50% down than a 5% down house. So lenders want to, if your loan to value is is greater than 80%, you need to have PMI. So that's why some people always go, well, I want to put 20% down to avoid the PMI. You know, so you know, you got to there's pros and cons to it. Some people though, like me, is sometimes might be advantageous to only put 5% down, eat the PMI payments. It's an extra 50 to sometimes up to 200. Well, that extra % down, I'm going to go invest it into something awesome, like some great turnkeys or something, and I just don't want a lot of equity. And also your ROI goes up on that, right? The less down, the higher your ROI. So for personal residences, if you're putting 20% down, you're golden. You avoid that PMI. Now, here's another interesting thing to kind of consider. If you put 5% down, okay, now this is kind of speculation here, and you're thinking this property is going to appreciate like 10% in 1 year, or 7 or 10, and maybe after a couple years it's like 5% for a couple years in a row. Once that property does have 80%, 20% equity, you can go to that PMI and be like, hey, I want a reappraisal. I think I actually have 20% equity in it now, right? And then they'll waive that PMI. So the PMI goes away once when the house's value does have 20% equity, okay? So just make sure to watch the equity on your house every year when you put 5% down, and watch it until you think, okay, I do now have 20% equity in my house. Pretty cool stuff, right? So some good things to think about there. All right, Scott, you are usually limited to 70% loan to value. So you gotta have good equity. Oh, okay. I don't know exactly on the HELOCs. I have seen people though do 95. I've heard of them out there for personal residences. They might have changed it. So sometimes you might only get 70 to 75%. So it just depends on the lender, where you're at, credits, and what that lender's willing to do. So you need some good equity in this house. In this scenario, it's if you can get 95, which would be freaking awesome. Okay. So yeah, man, I think that pretty much comprehensively kind of shows you the pros and cons to doing this. Really, the answer is, I mean, you got a good problem to have. You have 100 grand in equity. what am I going to do with it? And really the question is what this can be used for, okay? If you think this will be a better investment than this right here, then go ahead and invest this somewhere awesome. But if you're kind of just like, man, this house is great and it'd be a good rental because this whole cash flow thing works out, then I would go with this personally. Plus you get all this HELOC stuff. And then, you know, pros and cons to everything on that. And, you know, me thinking me and my mentality, I just think when I sell this sucker, this 50K, yeah, this will go to the down payment of the new house to buy. This 40K though, and me, like what's really hard for me, I got to just put my stuff into a black hole. If I don't invest this quickly, guess where this is going? This is going to a boat. You know, it's going to something really awesome. Because, you know, when you have 40 grand, it goes away quickly. Or a nice vacation. So like, you know, like of course, take some of that and do a nice vacation or something. Like, of course, you've earned it. But like, man, just try to put that money somewhere good quickly, or like into a secret, not a secret bank account, you know, like your special bank account for investments only, and then some in there. Because, man, when you don't name your dollars, when your dollars don't have a name on them, they'll all of a sudden just go into something, and you know, you kind of lose track of your, you know, your financial future. Okay, so that's my personal thoughts on why I kind of like that too, because it really just traps my money into here, which is good for me. I love trapping my money into real estate. I call it the black hole because, you know, I like to keep it in there and I just like to watch it go forever. I think that's actually a great investment strategy, is like pick like a good business, like you know, Apple or something, put it in there and never look at the stocks again. Like, I think that's like one of the best strategies ever, is just like, just don't look at it like once a year. Because when you start looking at the stocks and ticking up and, oh no, it's down 2% today, or, you know, all the coronavirus, let me sell everything, man. I think you just put it in there and let it sit. That's what I love about real estate, is the benefit and con of it is it's illiquid, right? But it's kind of a benefit to me, because then I'm not like going, wow, let me sell, you know, I'm all scared. You're just stuck into real estate. Okay, so some great questions. I think I might have disabled the chat or not. I don't know. Can you guys test one? Just a test. Okay, so those are the things there. So should I keep my property or not? Any other questions that anyone has? Please ask me any questions you guys have live here. I now kind of to the open question thing. I do have some other things I can discuss, but I'd love to hear questions from you. Scott Everhart, love it. I've only really ever found that best way property buy or package up a group of homes into a commercial refi cash out loan. That's a great one. Let me go a little bit on that. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Like on investment properties, you don't get HELOCs. It's really hard. I don't think there's a lot of lenders out there that do lending products, HELOCs on investment properties. They want you to do the cash out refi, which has those big fees, which is what I was discussing with Aaron Chapman last week in my live weekly whiteboard. He says, you know, I mean, you got to think about the cost of the money you're getting. So when you're going to go and do a cash out refi, just know you're probably going to have lender fees, you know, like all your fees summed up, because you got to get your deed re-recorded for the mortgage, because it's a new mortgage and you're cashing out. It's a higher loan amount. So you have title fees, you have an appraisal fee. Then obviously the lender takes a couple thousand on there. I mean, I'd say you're looking at anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 in just fees, total fees. So when you're going to do a cash out refi, you know, and you can only cash out 10 grand. I mean, half that's going to these fees. So you're just going to want to make sure when you cash out, you wait long enough to where you have at least a decent amount of equity to be worth paying these fees. I mean, when you're cashing out 50 grand, you know, because that would be like 50% of that cost. But if you have 50, that's only 10%, right? So you kind of want, I would say, a sweet spot, just depending on the scale for like a rental property and the size of the asset. You're going to want to at least be able to pull out like 25 to 30K before you go ahead and do a cash or refi. So which meaning you probably want to hold on, or you could go by a time thing. Hey, I'm not going to refinance my property cash out until I've owned it for 4 years or 5 years. That might be another good strategy as well. Because If you do it every 2 years, that lender's just rank it in the fees. Scott, always good not to pay all cash for a property and take cheap 30-year money. Once you use up all 10 of your golden ticket mortgages, yes, then go get a commercial or other expensive private loans. Yeah, man, I totally agree. So let me kind of go on that. Yeah, this is great. This is a great one. You kind of gave me an idea here. You know, some people ask me, hey, Sean, should I put 5% down? You know, what should be my down payment? 5%, 20. You know, I actually have a little bit more. I could put 30% down. You know, I could put 50% down. Should I do that? Obviously, with rental properties, you need at least 20. For your personal residence, you need 5. Now, there's that PMI thing I was talking about. Now, let's just go for rental properties. So that's out of the picture. But for rental properties, I think you just put 20% down every time. If you're in more the early phases of your investing, the more risk adverse and want to just get it going, I'd rather control, you know, if you could put 50% down, I'd rather put 20% down and be able to control 2 properties instead of 1 at 20% down. Reason being, they're both appreciating. They're both getting mortgages paid down. I have 2 tenants instead of 1, and just all those long-term benefits of owning real estate. So I personally, I'm a pro leverage person. I'm pro leverage for good investments. Okay, pro leverage for good investments, and also, like Scott mentioned, it's called the golden ticket mortgage, right? Okay, guys, so in terms of loan products, these Fannie Mae, Freddie Mae conventional mortgages are golden tickets, meaning it's like the cheapest debt out there for the longest like term, right? Because when something's 30 years, you spread it out over 30 years, right? And it's locking in today's dollar over 30 years. So in 15 years from now, how inflation goes up, you're still paying just the same fixed mortgage payment. And so like if your mortgage payment is $1,000 today, you're still paying $1,000 in 15 years, 20 years from now. And $1,000 in 15 years is, you know, going to be worth whatever, $2,000, $3,000 a day. So I mean, the lender's really getting bit hard the longer you keep that mortgage on. And also it's 20%. And yeah, they're like at like 3 to 4% right now for investment properties. I mean, it's just really cheap money because they're trying to stimulate the economy, and they say they're going to keep interest rates low for a while. That's a whole political thing. Anyways, these golden ticket mortgages, the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mae, according to their guidelines right now, you can have up to 10 of these loans, these awesome loans. So try to take advantage of them and lock them in now before they change. Or 8 loans, right? Some people have been in talks of they'll let us have 20 loans in our name someday, but it's been stuck at 10 loans since the market crash. Guess what? Before the market crash, I think you could have a lot of them. So people were just loading up, and hence why people were over leveraging, things like that. And also they were just refinancing all these crazy things. They weren't qualified. Anyways, go watch the Big Short. That's a good show. Yes, it's better just not pay off the property. And what I think is better also, like other people ask me, should I, I'm going to make $200 a month in cash flow on this property. Should I use that $200 a month and keep paying down that mortgage? So that way I pay the mortgage off, in 15 years instead of 30. My advice is no. Take that $200, invest it in the stock market and make 7-8%, or invest it somewhere else until it builds up big enough to get another down payment on a house. Buy a house, and as you've seen with all your tax benefits and everything like that, you can be getting anywhere from a 15 to 30% total return on investment if you consider the tax advantages, the principal pay down, the appreciation on the properties, everything like that. So that's my thought there. Actually, I'm going to film a video on that. There is no mortgage interest rate discount benefit over 25% down. Don't go over that. I do 25% down myself, just a me thing. Okay, yeah, that's a great point, Scott. So another thing to consider when you're doing down payments. So we're talking about for investment properties. I'll go into personal. After you so at 20% down, your interest rate, let's just say, I don't know, in a theoretical sense, I don't know these exact figures. Talk to a mortgage lender. Let's say for an investment property and you put 20% down, your interest rate is going to be 4%. If you put 25% down, meaning 5% more down, your interest rate might be 3.75, just a little bit less, which is great. But if you put 30% down, it's 3.75. So I kind of like that strategy if you actually have quite a bit of capital and that 5% doesn't really, does nothing for you there. It might be better just, hey, I need to work my money. All my money's sitting here somewhere. I'll put a little extra down, get that great rate. I like it. That's kind of like the golden sweet spot for some of those people kind of more farther along and kind of consider those things. It's all about your risk tolerance and everything, your strategy. But I think it first starts with you understanding how all of this works, how all of this changes, how all these cogs are moving, and how you can use them to your advantage. All these tools out here, right? You got your HELOC hammer. I love it. You got your 30-year fixed drill, and they all have little adjustments on them. Okay, and these golden tickets, and then other loans out there. Then of course you have investment vehicles. You have a stock market as an investment vehicle, mutual funds, which are some of that, but just a little safer, right? More diverse. You have paying down debt. You could pay down debt. That's a return on investment. You could invest in real estate. So you got all these great investment vehicles. Use all of them, diversify in all of them. You also have like a cash reserve account as well, which I suggest. All those great things. So pretty interesting. Yes, at the 25% down, that is the sweet spot to get like that absolute lowest rate. Also on a personal residence, let me restart here. So now talking personal residence, when you're going to live in, and yeah, it kind of goes the same. Like, I don't know exactly. I've kind of looked at it. You'd have to talk to a lender, but at 10%, your interest rate might be 4.125. At 5%, it might be 4.5. I mean, it might bump up a little bit the less down you put. Makes sense, right? A little more risky. Oh, well, I want to have a little bit better of a reward as a lender when you put less down. Plus, as I mentioned, you're going to have PMI above, when you put less than 20% down. Okay. Pros and cons to PMI. I think don't be scared of it. Also think about that thing. If the house is going to appreciate, you only have to pay the PMI for 2 to 5 years if it's appreciating 4 to 5% every year, right? Because eventually you will have the 20% equity in there. Especially if you're going to renovate the house. If the house is in okay condition when you buy it and you're going to fix it up, and that'll force the appreciation on it, then you might be able to get that PMI waived off right after you renovate it in 6 months or a year. That's another thing to consider about PMI. Also be thinking, well, I could put 20% down. I could put 5% down though and have 15% more of that equity invest in something. All about your risk tolerance though. I do agree though, there's nothing wrong though, guys, with having a 50% thing. It's just depends on where you're at and your risk and your aggressiveness. Okay. I like that. I'm getting 3.5 on the Olive Branch property I picked up for 30 years. Dude, that's freaking crazy, man. Wow. Oh, wow. 3.3. Wow. 3.375, 25% down investment. That's freaking nuts. Because like last year, I swear in 2018 and 19, that was like homeowner, 20% down. So rates have really dropped a lot. So yeah, it's a good time to kind of take advantage of it. And I think also with rates dropping, people can afford to pay more, right? They're going to pay more. With 1% interest rate drop, you can pay like 10% more to still have the same mortgage payment. So I think, at least if interest rates are going to be continuing at these low levels, I think we're going to see a 10% appreciation because the interest rates prove it in there. Go to a mortgage calculator. Here, let's do this one for fun. Just Google mortgage calculator. Okay, let's go $100,000 property. Okay, so and we're gonna call this like an investment. So $100,000 mortgage. So let me kind of clear this off a little bit more. This is kind of fun. So your loan is $100K. Okay, so at a 4% interest, your principal and interest payment is going to be $477 a month. Okay, so now if it was a 3% interest, you're going to have $422 a month at 3%. Okay, you're like, oh, piddly poo, that's nothing, right? So, yes, I did just say that. You're like, oh, that's nothing. 477 minus 422. I mean, you're like, oh, well, great, I save $55 a month. Okay, you're like, oh, that doesn't really change things. Okay, this changes everything in real estate. Let me show you why. Okay, so I'm going to keep it at a 3% interest rate, but I'm going to bump up this loan amount until it equals a payment of $477. So I'm going to use my strategic approach. Okay, so 125, so it's probably going to be 110. Okay, so at $110,000, it's 464 for still a 464. See that? Now I'm probably going to have 112. I mean, okay, perfect. No, right. Well, 112, 500. Okay, cool. 112, $500,000 loan at 3% interest rate is getting me 474. See that, guys? I'm just telling you. Because interest rates have dropped, I've seen them. They've dropped a percent since COVID, right? Since 2019 to 2020. People can pay 12% more, $12,000 more for this, in this scenario, $100,000 house. So, I mean, it's just telling me, what people look at, especially like homeowners, all they're looking at is, I make 80 grand a year or whatever. Okay. What people look at, they don't look at this price. They look at this. They look at the mortgage payment, right? So I make 80 grand a year. So divide that by 12. So I make $666K, right? And then what people let you do, your debt to income, they let you do about a third of what you make. It depends on your credit cards, if you have a car loan, all this other stuff. But pretty much about a good rule of thumb is about a third of what you make, your monthly make can be your monthly interest payment. So divide that by 3. So 2, 2, 2, 2. Okay, so all this person's looking at, I can buy a house that will allow me to pay, 2, 2, 2, 2. Now they wrap in taxes, insurance in there, but anyways, they're looking at this. They're not looking at the prices. Homeowners, investors are, right? They're doing their smart things. They're looking at other stuff. Anyways, I'm just telling you, I think real estate's going to appreciate 12%. I mean, it has to. It's for homeowners. They're like, well, I can pay 12% more than what I could last year, and I still am forking over the same interest payment because my interest rate's gone down. So I did that, and I just went, oh my gosh, So I just locked in a personal residence at 2.8% interest rate. And I'm going to repair it. We should probably go over to the house today, check it out. It needs a lot of work, but it's a pretty cool deal. So it's a fixer, but it's cool. 2.8. I'm going to have some great equity in it, and I've just locked in some awesome low money. Crazy free money, right? How are you, Scott? So I'm feeling a 12% appreciation. It's going to happen over a year or two. Okay. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Scott, for participating, and Grant. Everyone else watching after this live goes on, if you have any other questions, you can email. We should make a Google questions form, probably link in here, like questions you want answered, because I know everyone can't come live, isn't retired, whatever. I don't know, Scott. I haven't met you personally, but isn't laying back. He's enjoying all of his cash flow. Some of you are working on Fridays in the middle of the day. So some of you are watching this later, ask your questions this thing. Otherwise, you can be like our man Scott over here and can be live and watch things and enjoy his life how he wants. I think you're living the dream, Scott. I can tell. So we're going to put like a Google questionnaire, but yeah, you just email me, Sean at, Memphis Investment Properties .net, Memphis Investment Properties.net with some questions. We'll put a little Google form in here sometime. That way I can answer all your great questions that you guys have. Thank you so much. This is our weekly whiteboard, number 8.